Welcome to Among the Lilies. This is a show for ladies who are tired of pretending and are ready to be real. I'm your host, Cameron Frad, and in today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about embracing your ugly. Embracing the ugliness so the beauty can shine. So I just went to get my hair done. I don't know if you could tell, it looks a lot better than it did in the last few episodes. But as I was there at the hair salon, my hairdresser was lovely, chatting with her. It's connected to a restaurant. And so I go over to the restaurant and I'm ordering food and I ran into someone. And the restaurant's like mixed. There's like normal people dressed normally that look really nice. And then there's crazy people like me that have aluminum sticking up like every direction. And it looks like we're trying to, communicate with UFOs. But it's like embracing that ugliness. And then like I was sitting there, I was praying about what to talk to y'all about today. And I had a few different topics. And as I was praying about it, I was like, you know what? Like they probably thought I looked a little crazy, but they're like, oh, it's connected to the hair salon. I'm sure she's just getting her hair highlighted. Or you look at the woman who looks like her hair is like all greased down and it's wet and she's like dyeing her roots. It's like acceptable that you look kind of weird and ugly-ish while you're at the salon because it's like you're getting beautified. Growing up, I remember my mom saying like pain is beauty or something, or like you put yourself through this so you look beautiful. And I don't know if I believe it or not, but okay, yeah. Like we do things that make ourselves look a bit awkward to then look more beautiful. I don't know, we trust the process. We're like, okay, this is part of it. Yes, she's put this weird purple stuff on my hair, but it's going to make it look better. It's not going to look worse, so it's worth it. And I think certain environments, it's acceptable. So like hair salon, totally acceptable. When you're at a hospital, I've spent a lot of time in the hospital recently. People don't look their best. Like half the time, people are like in a gurney and don't have bra or underwear on. And that's it. And they're kind of like, just not feeling well, so they look pretty bad too, and you kind of like match what you're going through. And it's like, okay, this is a hospital. This is a place where people get restored and made better, so they don't need to look good. It's okay. I wish we had the same approach with the church, because we go to confession and we're in line for confession and we're trying to look really good. And I sat up too tall, sorry. We try to look really good and look like we have it all together, but then examining our conscience and like looking at all of our sins and all of our muck and grossness. And I think I don't know about you, but I'm afraid often to go there and to embrace my ugliness. Like I want to hide it. I want to be like, oh, no, I'm good. Look at me on the outside. I have it all together. I'm smiling. I have my hair done. I have a nice dress on. And I don't know, or we go to mass and we're sitting in the pew trying to follow along, trying to pay attention, trying to get our kids to sit still and pay attention so they know what's going on, and trying to not that I'm saying you shouldn't try to look like, you shouldn't try to look like you have it all together. But you should take pride in, I think that I'm not saying show up to church in a gurney because it doesn't matter, because that's the divine physician will heal you. That's not what I'm saying. But I think there's something to look at it and say like, okay, maybe it needs to get ugly before it can get restored to beautiful, right? So like old paintings, when they're restoring them, what does that look like? Right now we have masons at our house taking off brick. We have a lot of we have a broken pillar in the front of the house, and in the back we have like a broken window that's like going the wrong direction. But the pillar in the front of the house, my 6-year-old got home and they took it apart. Like it was already falling apart and it looked pretty bad, but it still had all of its bricks. The masons like took it apart and like gutted the inside, and you could see all the rotten bricks on the inside. And my 6-year-old came up and was like, oh, gross, Mom. Do not pay them because they made this look way uglier than it did before. And it's true. They did make it look way uglier than it did before. And there's something to like taking off the bricks and seeing what's underneath. They found snake skin in there. I guess there was a snake living in there. Lots of old rotten bricks that are just falling apart. So I can our house is over 100 years old, so no wonder there's old bricks. But I guess there's water damage in there, and some of the bricks I can just pinch and it falls apart. But they have to take it all apart and clean it all out before they put new bricks on. And sometimes I think we want God to just fix us right now. Like I'm like, all right, Jesus, I trust in you. Here's all my sins. Here's my grossness. Just please make me whole right now. Like just make me whole, fix me. And I think oftentimes he tells me, be patient. Like, I love you and I'm working on you. It's like the refinest fire, right? Like he really wants to get in there and he really wants to make me who he created me to be, who is someone that's far more amazing and beautiful than I currently am. But it takes time. And it takes, the closer we get to the light. I remember many of the saints talk about what sinners they are. And I think sometimes we can look at them and be like, oh my goodness, they're not a sinner. They should see me. But I think the closer you get to the light, like a glass, if you hold a glass up to the light and you see all the spots and all the imperfections, the closer you get to the light, the more you see it. So in our walk with Christ, the closer we get to him, the more he reveals to us the areas that we are failing in. And if you're like me and you're more of a doer and you're running around doing stuff, you don't often take the time to just sit and be and let him show you all of that and say, like, give it all to me, like, trust in me. And I think that we're afraid of, or at least I am afraid of opening up the can of worms and like, oh, please, Jesus, could you not just do patchwork? Could you not just see the bits of brick that are falling apart and just put like the concrete stuff in it and harden it? Like, wouldn't that be great? Isn't that good enough? And he's like, no, I want to restore you to your glory and your goodness. Like, you are made in my image and likeness, and I love you so much. And you are worthy of so much more than this. Like, I want to get rid of all this stuff. I want to clean it up. And I want to get down to the core and then rebuild you from there. So having that identity deep down inside that I am a daughter of God, like that's where my identity is. People can say mean things about me on YouTube or wherever. And it's like, that's okay. If deep down inside I know I'm a daughter of God, then someone can say your hair looks horrible, or why aren't you wearing better makeup? Or I don't know, whatever people are saying, or you're too much like this, or you're too much like that. And like criticisms don't matter as much because it's like, okay, I know who I am right here, deep down inside. Like, this is my identity. And I think sometimes getting there is really hard. And I think that we need to embrace the ugliness that is our sin. The little tiny white sins. I went to confession recently, and the priest basically said that my sins weren't that bad, which I don't know. It's pretty hilarious. You can ask my husband or my children, and they will tell you I am a big fat sinner, and I do have really bad sins. I was in the hospital at the time, so maybe my brain wasn't all there and I didn't actually confess my sins properly. Maybe I just went through too quick, but he was saying like, oh, they're not that bad or something. And I'm like, no, they actually are. Like, I probably didn't articulate it correctly for you to see the severity of these sins. And I think that's where it's important that we have someone that we go to and that we trust, and we can be peeling back, layers and saying like, okay, Lord, I'm willing to go there. I'm willing to let it get ugly so you can restore it. So I know I was talking to some people the other day. Dr. Bob Schutz does this Healing the Whole Person retreat. Sister Miriam is so good about talking about this and talking about God's goodness and how he restores us. And it is through our pain. It is through our brokenness. It is through it's through the pain that Christ can shine, right? And really heal those wounds. And if we're afraid to go there with the wounds, then he can't heal them. Like, we need to, just like you can't get better unless you go to a doctor and you say, doctor, here's a big gaping wound. I don't know what's wrong. Maybe you do. Can you fix it? And letting him see it. But if you're like, oh, it's just kind of a cut, it's not a big deal, you put a Band-Aid over it and you're like, yeah, doctor, it hurts a lot all the time, but it's not a big deal. I'm not worried about it. It's embarrassing. To some pains and some wounds are really embarrassing. I've gone to a lot of doctors, and more recently, things have gotten really intimate, and some of the doctors, it's really, even I, who am pretty open with things, am a little embarrassed about things that the doctors are asking me and I'm sharing, and it's like, oh gosh, this is really intimate. But it's like, unless I share and answer this doctor's questions fully, then she won't be able to help me, right? So I think, I don't know. I think I'm just encouraging you to go there and share those parts that you don't want to share. Open up that can of worms that you're afraid if I open it, I can't put the lid back on. Good. We don't want the lid back on. Christ has come to set you free. He hasn't come to make the can more, I don't know, more doable. He has come to heal you and let you live life and life to the full. And he doesn't want you having a Band-Aid over a gaping wound. He wants to heal you. He is all knowing. He knows that you have a gaping wound. Unlike the doctor who may not know how bad the cut is, Christ knows. God knows. And he just loves you so much and he wants to heal you. He wants to make it right. And he's like, just ask for my help. You know, I want to help you. Yeah, I think of The Chosen. I don't know if any of you have been watching The Chosen, but I love Mary Magdalene in it. And I love how Christ approached her and calls her by name. And that scene, and it's from the first season. It may even be the very first episode, but he touches her arm and sees her. And it's the first time that someone saw her in a very long time. She had been with men. She was drinking with people then in the pub, but he saw her, right? And I think there's something to it. And so, I don't know. I think if we're willing to get uglified or embrace our ugliness and showing off our roots and whatever to go get our hair done, or I don't know, go get a facial. I'm not into facials. Maybe I should be into facials. I did it once and the girl just kept telling me how horrible my skin was and how I've lost all the elasticity in my face. And I'm like, I don't think that's possible. But I was like, I'm not going to pay someone just to insult me the whole time. At least when I get my hair done, my hairdresser doesn't insult me. And then afterwards, I feel like it looks good. And I'm like, oh, that looks a lot better. Thank you. And she curls it in a way that I don't know how to do it. My curling doesn't look this good. But I think that if we're willing to trust this hair salon lady, our hairdresser, or a doctor who, yes, they have studied a lot, then how much more should we be willing to accept Christ and show him our wounds and go to confession and find a priest that's willing to sit there and hear it all. I've done it a couple of times. I remember the first time I was on net and it was to do I forget what they call it, but it's basically you do your whole life and you go back and any sins that you feel like you maybe haven't confessed in the past, choices that you've made that have been very bad, wounds that you've inflicted on yourself or on others, bringing it out into the light, saying okay, this is what I've done. It's sad. It's embarrassing. I think especially if you have a bit of a rough past, but it is good. It is only in that Christ can heal you. I have a real heart for women, and that's why I have this podcast, because I have a heart for y'all. And I think about where I was when I was younger, and there was many times in my life that I was in really bad spots. And I not only didn't like myself, but I really, really hated myself. And I am not proud of the way that I treated myself or my body or others around me. But bringing that into the light, giving it over to Christ and letting him heal me is huge. So I don't know where you're at right now. If you are struggling with something and you're afraid to talk about it, I beg you, talk about it. Go to Christ with it. Go to confession, call up a girlfriend, let her know. Oftentimes our friends know more about us than we think they know. Or if you have someone that's a little bit older than you, more of a mentor type person, and just trust them with this. I know that there's a lot of girls that people think that they are the goody two shoes and have never made a bad decision or mistake in their life. I know a lot of these girls are really struggling with masturbation and they have a pornography addiction. And they're like, no one would ever expect it because I lead youth group. I'm begging you, tell someone, go to confession, talk to your youth minister, get it out there. Okay. When something's in the darkness, Christ, you're not letting him heal it, right? It's not that he's not capable of healing it, but you're saying, no, 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 I don't want you to look at this. You're allowed to look all over here, but don't look at that. You need to bring it out into the light. Or maybe it's self-hatred. Maybe it's cutting. There's so many things. Just bring it into the light. You are not alone. You are not the only one going through this. Since this whole COVID pandemic lockdown, so many young people, a lot of people, but young people in particular, are struggling with suicide. They're struggling with depression, and we need to talk about it. If you're not willing to say something, and more than just like, oh, I feel sad sometimes. That's not what I'm talking about. Like depression is rough. It is really rough, especially when you feel like you've hit rock bottom. Ask for help. Seek for help. Go to confession. Get to the sacraments. I think sometimes we just really need to embrace the ugly. And it is through that ugliness that Christ shines his light and heals, and we're able to shine and show his glory and his goodness. And he is desiring to restore you to your full beauty. My beautiful sister in Christ, I beg you, go to him, seek him, find him, ask, and he will give it to you, right? And I know that you are in pain and suffering, but seek him. Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in, for listening. I have questions and answers that I normally do, and I'm going to do them over on Patreon today. I'm not going to do any on here. Some weeks I do it on both. If you are not subscribed, please like, subscribe, share. If you have questions you want to ask, if there's specific topics you want me to cover, please go to patreon.com/amongthelilies. I believe the link is in the description below, and you can click on that to find out more. But thank you so much. It was a pleasure being with you, chatting with you, and I love you, and you're beautiful. Even if you're in the middle, actually all of us really are in the middle of the restoration process. So right now we have a white brick house, and the bricks that have been fixing my house are very much yellow. So it's still not it's still like halfway. The back's restored, which is great, but it's still not totally beautiful. It's not going to be restored until we finish painting it. And I think we're not fully restored until we're in heaven with our Lord, where we are truly glorified and sinless. And just that'll be the day, huh? But until then, we are still in the process of our being restored, being broken down, being purified. Embrace it, lean in. Don't be afraid of the ugliness, because the Lord uses that, and he wants to chisel away and let his goodness shine forth. All right. God bless. Talk to y'all later. Bye.